Right, good morning. Good morning. How is everyone doing today? Great. My name is Krupa. I'm a program manager on Expression Blend, and I'm joined on stage by my colleague Celso, who's a UX designer, also on the Expression Blend team. And today we'd like to talk to you a bit about designer and developer workflow. But before I get to that, how many of you here would consider yourselves to be developers? Wow, that's a lot of you guys. And how many of you here would consider yourselves to be designers? Great. So, if you raise your hands, the session is really geared for those of you. But if you didn't raise your hands, don't worry. We still have some interesting material, and we hope to entertain you in the process as well. So, for the bulk of the session, Celso and I will be building a series of small applications to highlight how a designer and a developer can work together using our tools. And around halfway, we're going to take a small detour, small trip, and show you something that seems completely unrelated to what the session is about, but believe me, it all fits in somehow. And we'll show you another example and conclude with some questions and answers. So this is a pretty complicated topic. As many of you know, there are many sessions on developer and designer workflow, and there's no one-size-fits-all answer to this. So to help Celso and I during this session, we'll be enlisting the help of three good friends who will be making periodic, wrong three friends. The three friends that I'm going to be talking about are Expression Design, Expression Blend, and Visual Studio. In case you're not familiar with these three applications, Expression Design is our graphics content creation tool that allows you to, among many other things, export your creations in a form that WPF and Silverlight understand. And it integrates really nicely with the next app we'll be showing, which is Expression Blend. And Expression Blend is our production tool for designers wanting to create user interfaces for WPF and Silverlight apps. And actually at MIX released a beta of Blend 2, which allows you to create Silverlight 1 in WPF applications. And we also released a preview of Blend 2.5, which allows you to create WPF, Silverlight 1, and Silverlight 2 applications. We've been pretty busy. And so Blend and Design make up the designer offerings that Celso will be showing off during this term. But an application, though, is more than just pretty visuals. It isn't just something that looks nice, but it also has some functionality, some interaction. And for that, you have Visual Studio, where a developer can write code and create some pretty cool things. And to describe everything that Visual Studio does would probably take an entire session, and it's a Friday, so I'm not going to do that. So these applications by themselves are pretty powerful, but the real magic is in watching how they all work together. So to start off, I'm going to turn it back over to Celso.
Okay, so good afternoon, or good morning still. Still have 11 minutes for morning. And let me go to the demo machine and start showing what we're building here today. So I'm Celso Gomez, and I work as a user experience designer for the Expression Design team, Expression Design and Blend. And let me show you what we're building here today. So this is a WPF application. And one important aspect of this application, as you can notice, is that we are showing data. This is live data from a database, not in a traditional way, not as a list box with text, but in a very much more engaging way. So we also have a combo box here. We can filter the data, for example, just couches or just chairs. And things work the same way. We can drag and drop this window, and you can see that the window, it's a little different than the traditional window application. It's transparent with some rounded corners. And here you have the name of the designer. Yeah, you can see that. So let's see how we can build something like this. In the process, we're going to show how we work with the three friends that Krupa just mentioned: Expression Design, Expression Blend, and Visual Studio. So my part as a designer, I start in Expression Design. Makes sense. So here is the artwork in Expression Design. We have all the elements that you see in the final application. So this is a text block. And we can export as a text block, so you don't have to recreate a text block in Blend. More text block here. We have some vector graphics, like this arrow, bitmaps. So all the elements that you're used to as a designer. And I want just to call your attention for the two layers that I have in this project. I have template and background. Template is the way that my data will look like, and the background is just the background of my application. you'll see that we will have the same structure in Blend later. So in order to, actually, we could create all that stuff in Blend by itself, because Blend also has all the drawing tools that you need to create your application. But if you're a pure visual designer, you will find that expression design, it's a great entry point to create your artwork for WPF and Silverlight applications. So in order to bring this artwork to Blend, we need to export to XAML. How many people here did some kind of WPF application? Great. Designers that create for WPF? Just a few. So as a designer, to export your stuff to WPF, you need to WPF and Silverlight, you need to export to XAML. And the way that we do this is just going to File, Export. And instead of a PNG, we can choose WPF for Silverlight or WPF Canvas. In this case, we have a WPF application. So I will choose WPF Canvas. And we have a rich preview here. And WPF Canvas just means that we have a container where we can position our elements just the same way you do with layers in Photoshop, Illustrator, or Expression Design, like we just did here. So I'll just export this, and notice that the name of the file is furnitureshowroom.xaml. And I can go to Blend now. And this is our project that we created before. It's just an empty canvas, and our project is Window 1 XAML. So if I run the application right now, we can see a traditional Windows application completely empty. So we need to bring those assets that we exported from design into this main window. And the file that I just exported is here, Furniture Showroom XAML. I can open with double click. And you can see we have the same thing, including the text block working. And so it's very, very helpful. There's no other software right now that can export that well in a design surface to Blend as Expression Design does right now. So we just need to copy this stuff in our main window. So we have this XAML, which is our assets, and this is the empty window of our application. And before that, remember that the application had some transparent borders and stuff. So I'll just change 2 properties in this window. I just need to select my window here and go to the Properties panel. And I will remove the background color. Just select the No Brush. And allow transparency, so our window is really transparent. And it will change the title too. So now I can go to the Furniture Showroom XAML. And remember, we had 2 layers in Expression Design, background and template. In this case, I will select just background, copy, Control-C, go back to the main Windows XAML, and paste here. And if I run the application right now, we already have that main frame for the application. It's transparent with rounded colors, some shadows and stuff. So the frame for my application is ready, but now I need some data. And as a designer, I don't know how to work with database and stuff like that, so I need Kirupa back to connect the application.
Right, thank you, Celso. So when you saw the finished version, the Furniture Showroom app, you saw we were displaying data, more specifically furniture data. I'm getting that data from somewhere, and like Celso mentioned, it's a database that I've already created. So what I'm going to do is simply provide Celso with access to the data we had already created. So in the interest of time, I already created the code. I'm just going to insert it. Great. So what I will point out, though, I'm not going to go over the code in great detail, but I will point out the points that will make a reappearance when Celso is actually using it in the design. So because I'm displaying furniture data, I have a class called furniture. And notice the names I'm using for the data I'm storing. I have designer, name, description, image path, and type. And type in this case stands for what kind of furniture is it? Is it a couch? Is it a chair? And so I have my representation for one piece of furniture, but what I really want is many pieces of furniture. And for that, I create something called a furniture collection. And let me run the app and just show you how it looks. And let's see. So does anyone notice anything different about what this application does right now? The answer is no, because all I'm doing is simply loading the data and providing Celso with access to it. I'd rather have him pick and choose what parts of my data he would like to display, and more importantly, how he would like to go ahead and display it. So let's see how Celso would display our data. And I'm going to turn it back over to Celso.
Okay, so now we have the data behind. And as a designer, I don't have to worry. I don't have to know anything about the database or C#. If I go back to Blend, I can access that same data that Kirupa just created for me under CLR object. So the only thing I need to know is that I have a CLR object that I can access in Blend. If I click here to add one, there is the furniture collection that Kirupa just showed you. It's here. I can just select it and click OK. And Blend creates a data source. And it's here. It's just a list of everything that we had in the database, the name of the designer, description, all that stuff. So now we need to show that data. And we don't want a traditional list box with just text. But it's a good point to start with a list box because you get a bunch of stuff for free, user control that it's already in WPF. So I will just draw a list box right here. Just double click my layout root where my list box will go. And I drag and drop here. And I have the list box ready. And now I just need to drag and drop the data from this data source onto my list box. And when I release the mouse, I have the option to bind to a list box. And Blend already assigned that data to item source. And item source in a list box is just the place where the list box will look like for data. So Blend does that for us already. And the next step is our option to show how the data will look like. And it's called data template. So in this case, we have all the fields that Kirupa has in the C# code: description, designer, image path, type, name, everything. For now, I'll just accept the default options from Blend. And we can see in our list box that we already have live data there. So if I run the application with F5, we have a list box working. We can scroll down here. And you can see that we have all that data available. We have the description. This is the name of the designer, image path, name of the product, and the type. But we don't want our list box to look like that. We want each item to look like this. So how can we do that? Before changing that, I just need to tweak a little bit the style of the list box. So for example, let me zoom in so you can see more details. We don't have transparency right now, so I'll just remove the background color of my list box. Here you go. Now we can see the background. And also, I don't want this horizontal scroll bar. So if you can't find the option for a scroll bar, you can just type and filter your properties. And I don't even have to finish a scroll, just type scroll. And you have horizontal scroll and vertical. I'll just disable the horizontal, and it's gone. And now we need some styles that it takes a little time. So for the sake of time, I would just apply one style for my items, which I already have prepared. And it's actually, where is my style? Oh, it's here. Furniture list box style, just to remove some stuff like this background from this item. And let's go here. Now everything is transparent and ready to go. So now we need to change the way each item looks like. And to do that, we have to change the data template. Now I will go in the data template, and we can do that by using the new breadcrumb bar. This is a very nice and useful feature that I will show more during the presentation. But we can just access styles and templates using this new breadcrumb bar. So I can go to my data template. And here, you can see a yellow frame around one of each template. And down here, you can see all the options that we had before. Description, name of the designer, all that stuff. So we don't want anything like that. And as a designer, you have full control of how your live data look like. And we can actually go here and delete everything and go back to my furniture showroom and copy that template layer that I had before. So copy the layer, go back to template, paste here, and I'll just need to zoom out so you can see where things are. Actually, let me use one really cool feature of Blend that I'll just make 75%, so everything else it's a little smaller, so we have more area here to see the artwork. And we have all the elements from design here. I will just move them a little bit with the mouse. And there you go. And actually, I forgot to remove the border of my list box. That's no problem. Again, with the breadcrumb bar, I can just click, and we have all the whole path of styles and templates that we are editing. So I can easily go back to my root and change the border to none also. So now we don't have a border here. And if I select the list box, Blend remembers the place that we were before. So I just have to click and go again down my data template. So we just changed the data template. If I press F5 and run the application, it's nice, but nothing works. If I go down the scroll bar, it's all the same, because I didn't connect with the live data yet. So what I have to do, for example, let's get one item, the designer name, and there's an option here that it's called text. It's the text property of my text block. So I can just go to advanced properties, and I will data bind it to the data source that we had before. So if I go data bind, the same collection that we had before is here, the furniture collection, and I can choose which one I want for this specific text block. In this case, it's the designer name. Click Finish, and you see that we already have the name changed. So if I run again, only this text block now has the live data. So if I scroll down, you can see that the name of the designer already changes. Now we just have to do the same thing for the other ones. So just click here, go to the advanced options, data bind. This is the name of my product. Finish. This is the description. And notice that the names are really important for me. Kirupa created something meaningful that I can just look and say, oh, okay, this is the description of my product. It's here. So just choose this one. And the last one is the image. So we don't have a text here. We have a source of the image. So I also can go to the advanced properties, data binding to image path, which is just a path to a JPEG. And we don't see any change because I'm using the same image that the first item in the database. So if I run again, now all the elements are already with live data behind, working, and I was able to completely change the way each item looks like. But there's another aspect here that we need to change, which is this ugly scroll bar. It doesn't fit at all with the rest of the design. So how we can do that? The same way that we change the look of each item using a data template, we can change the look of any control using a control template. So I can go back to my list box here, and still using the breadcrumb, I can go to control parts and edit the template of this list box. And I had one before. Don't worry about this big, huge message. It's just saying that I had a style there, but I just replaced the style. And inside my list box, you can see here we have a scroll viewer. Again, I can keep going in this template. And inside the scroll viewer, I have something called vertical scroll bar. That's the one we want. If I hide in review, notice that on the right, that's the control, the part that we're looking for. Again, I can keep going. And inside this vertical template, I have the three parts that matters for us. There's the repeat button, which are the top button over there, and the part in the middle. I don't want this part in the middle. So just so you to understand what I'm doing here, remember that in the beginning we had these two arrows. So what I'm trying to do is to restyle my scroll bar to look like that, just these two arrows, to left and right. So is that possible in WPF? Yeah, and it's easier. So in this case, we don't have anything in the middle here for the scroll bar. So just remove this guy, actually just hide it, and also change the background to transparent. So just change this reset. Now we can concentrate in the button itself. So I'll zoom in here in the button. And this is a repeat button. So I can, again, keep going. Oh, actually, I can just edit the template here. OK. And inside, we have this Chrome, which is just a Windows default style. I'll just remove this guy and copy the arrow from the art that we had before. Same thing, just copy here, paste, And it's not quite in the right position. So if you want to fit inside this container, I can just go to auto size fill, and it should go there. Oh, I forgot to, yeah, of course. I forgot to create a container. So I have a template, but I have to create a grid. And it's here now, the grid. And inside the grid, I will paste my new asset. And now I can just fill the grid itself. Nice. So if I go back to the parts that we had before, you notice that both buttons, top and down, they change. So this is the down button. It's always with the new asset. And we just change this to 100%. Now we can move those guys to the right position here. So just select one of them, move it here. So now we're really deconstructing completely the scroll bar. The buttons don't have to stay in the same line aligned with the left. And actually when I do that, Blend helps me with some snapping and automatic grids. And I can just increase the size of those guys, move it here, a little less. Here you go. So the second one, I just need to flip horizontally, so I can go to Object, Flip, Horizontal, move it back here. And now, we should have a completely restyle scroll bar working. So if I click here, you can see that instead of having that scroll bar there, we can use those buttons. But I just need to remove, actually, I just need to remove this template that we had before because it was just a reference. So I will just go down again in my template and remove those two arrows behind. Nice. And actually now, let me run again just to show you. We don't have any interaction with the mouse. So I move here and say, oh, is this really working? I can't tell, but when I click, I see that it's working. There's some interaction with the mouse that is missing. So we can actually add that right now. And we have to go back to the template of the control. And we can go all the way to the button itself. So you can see that as I go from one control to another, Blend still remembers the place I was before, and it's very easy to navigate through them. And now I will just add two properties here for mouse events. So I can say that when I have an event called isMouseOver, I would just change the color of my arrow to maybe 60%. So it's a little darker when it's mouse over through. And another property, which is when it's pressed, I will change this to 100%. It's even darker. So both buttons are using the same control. So when I run the application, they're both working. And now it's more obvious that I have a control really working. Nice. So we were able to completely change the way the live data looks like, and we were also able, just using no code at all, completely change the way a scroll bar looks like. So, and actually just to make it easier to select, I will create a color in my grid, because it's just, a button needs to have some kind of, oops, not this one, just need to go out here, some kind of background. Right now there's no background, so I have to roll over the arrow itself, but I want the whole area, so I just create a color and put 0%. So now when we run the application, we can see that even if I'm not exactly on top of the arrow, I can still roll over and the button works. Nice. So there's only one piece missing here, which is the combo box to filter the data that I have. And after this application, we will show you a much, much more complex application using this workflow. So I also can create a control here, combo box, and just drag and drop the place that I want. And actually, I need to be 30 pixels high. And I can also create the filters that I'm using. Let me just, so, oops, sorry. Let me just close this guy here. So in my combo box, there's an option called Items Collection. If I click here, I can add new items to my combo box. In this case, it's a combo box item. And the options that I have for my combo box are all, so no filter at all. I can add another one called just chair. Oops. Chair. And the last one is just couches. So let's go here. Couch. Okay. And if I press F, actually, we can select the first item that will appear. In this case, we have selected item -1, which means it doesn't show anything. So I just change to 0 to show the first item in my list box, in my combo box, sorry. And we have combo box working. And to connect with the data, I can, inside of Blend, create an event handler. So I can go in properties. There is the events on the right here. And we can say that when selection changed, I will trigger filter furniture. Filter furniture. And if I press enter, it will connect with Visual Studio and make everything available to Kirupa to insert the right code.
Great. So one of the highlights of Blend and Visual Studio is that they both share the exact same project files. So what I have open right now is window1.xaml.cs, which is really the code equivalent of what Celso has opened in Blend. So he created a filter furniture event handler, which I'm going to add some code to fill up. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to add some code already. And just to be clear, we'll be providing all the source files, all the code for you later to download, so you can actually look at how all these details were implemented at your leisure. So I have added my code, and let me just run this. And great, so you have, currently we're seeing all of the furniture. You're seeing sofas and chairs, but let me change it to just chair. And notice that right now, the only data you're seeing is information for chair. And if I change to couch, you see only couch. So what I really did was I'm modifying the data source itself. I'm not actually telling the UI to make the modifications. Because of the way data binding works in both WPF and Silverlight 2, it's very easy for me to make some modifications to my data and have the data update automatically be reflected in our user interface. So, I'm looking at this application, and I think it looks pretty good. So I think we're done. How about you, Celso?
Not yet, actually. Yeah, we just need a little tweak here. As you can see that the combo box doesn't really fit the style of the application, so I can go back to Blend. And for the sake of time, I already have some styles ready. So if you're working in an environment that you can reuse your styles, that's great because you can save them in resources. So in this case, I have one for combo box, which is here, furniture combo box style. I can just drag and drop on top of my combo box and apply to style. And you can see that I change everything, borders and background and everything else. And also the color of the text itself, I would like to be a little gray. So you can go to foreground color and just change the color of the text. And if I run application again, we still have the same functionality, but with the new style more simplified for this application. And the filter still works with the same live data behind, just couches and that. And actually, I changed so much the Windows, this WPF application, that I can't even drag and drop or close the application. So we just need to add a few assets here. And again, for the sake of time, I already have these assets ready. And I'm not using expression design. As I said before, Blend also has some drawing tools, all the drawing tools that you need to create your artwork. So in this case, I just create inside of Blend itself. I will just copy those guys and bring to my main window. I can paste here, and they were right here, so I can just move to the right location. My close button here, and my drag, it's here. Somewhere in the middle here. And again, just like I did with the combo box, I can just create some event handlers in my properties events and say that, for example, when I click this button, it's the first option here, I can trigger something like on close, and it will, of course, connect with Visual Studio, but I don't want to add the code now. I'll just go back to Blend and add some code for my drag button. In this case, it's the button, mouse left button down. I will have one drag. And the two codes are there ready for some real code behind.
Thank you, Celso. So the code for actually doing both of these is actually pretty simple. So I'm actually going to write some code right here. And set close. And to drag, it's also just one line. And if I run this, you should be able to see our application still does what we want to do, but now you have drag functionality, and it closes. So are we done now?
Not yet. There's one tweak, last week. That was easy, I could do that. Yeah. But okay, so let's go back to Blend. And the last tweak, remember that the first application that we had, there was a transition when we click from one item to another. So it's very easy to create that in WPF also. So if I go back to my scroll bar, my list box, one of the options that I have, at the same time I have my content. Let me just change the zoom. I have the content here. I will just hide and reveal. And in the same place, I have the scroll bar. So I could trigger an event that everything that happens in the mouse in my scroll bar, it triggers an animation in my content. So for example, I select my scroll bar and add this trigger, which is, after search for a while, I found that there's one called mouse, where is it? Mouse, is mouse in man. Okay, here, is mouse capture within. That means that every mouse event that happens in my vertical scroll bar, I will trigger something. In this case, it must be true. So just change this attribute here. And we have an option, the actions when activating. So if I press this plus button, Blend tells me that I don't have any storyboards and I can create a new one. So I just press, yeah, I want a new storyboard. And now I can select my content. So this is the layer of the content. And create an animation. So I go to time 0.5, for example, go back to properties, and just create a keyframe here. And in time 0, I just change it to 0% opacity. So we can preview this animation. It's just showing an item just fading in. And I can actually control the speed of this animation with this nice, also new feature in Blend 2, which is the key spline. I can select the acceleration of my animation just to appear a little slower. And now that's it. So if I press F5, should be able to click here and see that every time we change a selection, we have this animation, again, without adding any new code in C# or anything. And I think now we're done. Okay.
Yeah, I was actually done a few minutes ago, but wow, it looks a lot better. So just to give you a quick recap of what we just did, we started out with the design, expression design, and we ported it into Blend. And one thing I really want to focus on is that I, as a developer, never really concerned myself with the design. You never saw me making any updates to what you saw on the screen. And likewise, Celso, he never wrote any code. All the interaction was handled by Blend and Visual Studio, and we just focused on what we were more comfortable with. So I think we're done with this demo. We are?
Yeah.
Excellent. So at the very beginning, I promised you all there would be a slight detour to what we'll be doing. So I think now is a good time for that. At the keynote, many of you saw an example of the deep zoom technology. The Hard Rock Cafe used it. But how many of you here know that you can actually use your own images, convert them into this special format, and actually create your own deep zoom images in your projects? Okay, so let me ask you the other way around. How many of you do not know such an application exists? And all right, great, great. So, a couple of days ago at MIX, we actually released a preview. The Expression Blend team, in collaboration with the Live Labs team, actually wrote a small power toy called the Deep Zoom Composer. And what this will, power toy allows you to do is use your own images, import them, arrange them in whatever way you want, and export them into a format that you would like. So let me give you a quick demo. And while I'm doing this, I want you to focus on just how this application looks, the look and feel of the app. It looks like a traditional expression app. And let me just call it, let's make up some text. All right, so let me just add a few images. And it's importing. Notice the look of the progress indicator. It looks a little different. And here I'm just using the default Vista wallpapers. They're a good size. And I have a composition board where I can just drag and drop my images, position them in any way I want. And what's really cool is we're actually using the deep zoom technology in the design surface itself. So as I'm zooming in, any parts of the image that aren't relevant are not sent to your computer. So that helps a little bit with the CPU usage and, more importantly, the memory. So I can compose my images in any way I want. I can actually zoom all the way in and have like a very simple collection, and I can actually export to whatever format I want. So for the sake of time, I already created a simple example that showcases this. So let me just maximize the browser. And so here you have it. You have the wallpapers that I imported, and I went ahead and created some more stuff. So notice that as I'm zooming in, the images become progressively higher quality. And let me just find the image that I'm trying to go to. So have a fish within fish. That's pretty cool. So let me zoom in further. And so now you're probably wondering. So you're probably going, so I promised you a detour, but now I'm like driving the wrong direction at full speed. So I must say, so why is this relevant? Well, let's get the obvious one out of the way first. This is a shameless plug. This is something that Celso, I, and a few colleagues worked on quite for the past few weeks, and we released it as a free preview, so please feel free to download it. It's actually the third item, if anyone's keeping track, of what the Expression team released this week, besides Studio 2 beta and Blend 2.5 preview. So we're just lucky there's not a fourth day of Mix, otherwise we'd have to have something else to show you also. And to get back to the point, this is a more realistic example of the developer and designer workflow. So what Celso and I showed you with our first application was a case where you have a simple application, an application with very little functionality, and it's good for demoing purposes, but really outside of that, it doesn't really do much. But the Deep Zoom Composer that you saw was an example that actually showcases a lot of the nice features that are probably more relevant to you in the real world. So one thing is the developers for this project. They were not located in Redmond. They were actually located hundreds of miles away in Canada. And the styling was done entirely by Celso. But despite the geographical differences, we were able to still build the app with Celso continuing to focus on the design and with the developers working on the functionality. And just to give you a quick preview of how the app looked not too long ago, I have a preview version of this running. And let's see, oh, wrong computer. And this application will probably crash. I just want to give you some warning right now. So same application. This is, might be hard to believe, but what you see here, and I'm going to close this window, and what you see here are essentially the same apps. So I'm going to close this, and similar functionality. I can create a new project, and as you can see, it's not quite as friendly to use. So, but okay, I think it's crashing a little earlier than I had expected, but it's okay. You guys get the picture. So what I'm going to do now is turn it over to Celso, who'll give you an example of how he actually went through to style an application that went from that to what you actually saw earlier. Celso?
Yeah, so as Kirupa said, that's a really much more complex workflow between developers and designer. The developers were in Canada, and I was working in Seattle. And luckily, we had Kirupa that explained them pretty much like we explained today, how we can manipulate XAML and the C# behind independently, so designers can work without breaking the code and vice versa. So I can actually open that project, open solution. I can open the Deep Zoom right here in, oops, not this one, filing, open solution. I have, where is my project file? Kirupa, do you have any idea where the project file is?
Just go to your desktop.
Oh, it's a desktop.
And MIX08 or Deep Zoom Start.
Oh, here you go. But it's not here still. Let me see. Let me just check if we have the mermaid object. Huh. That's odd. We have another location that.
Let me find it. That's
okay.
Okay, this might have it. And surprisingly, this doesn't either. Wow. That is not part of the presentation. And
Yeah, we are ahead a few minutes, so it's okay, a little detour here. But basically what I will show in this application is that we have several user controls. So the same way that we use one application, one window, the window 1 XAML. In this application, since it's much more complex, we had to use a bunch of user controls. And a user control in Blend or WPF is pretty much the way you think about move clips in Flash. Is anybody here from Flash World? Worked with Flash before? A few people. So you can go drill in and add the content of your content, and you still have those blocks, separate blocks, that you can integrate in the application later. And I hope we can show. Oh, no, that's the other one.
It's not the one.
What about that mermaid one?
That is not the one either, unfortunately. So,
but you know what? I think I have in another computer here. So you might be able to.
it's a great example of developer and designer workflow.
So, Cooper, you don't know how to dance, do you?
I do not know how to dance, unfortunately.
Me neither. So let me just try. Actually, let me try to connect with C. Let's see if we can just plug this guy. You know which one is this? Man, there's so many
C.
stuff here.
We're going to use mine.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Just is there anything showing there? Not yet.
Not yet.
You gave the same one. So, is this a presentation?
Yes, C.
Let's see, there's something here. Oh, here you go. So let's see if I have the presentation here. I still have the beta version of Blend, but it works the same way. Let's open. Two. No, please don't go. It's just a few minutes. Just kidding. Okay, so it's opening. Let me see if I have full power here in the laptop. Yeah, high performance. That's good. Okay, so let's open the project. It's under File, Open, Solution. I have one here, Deep Zoom. Start, Source, and it's this one. So the first thing I want to show you in this project is the project structure itself. Here under Files. Yeah, okay. And in case you didn't notice, this is the same structure of Visual Studio 2008 project, so it's just a solution from 2008. And now, remember I told you about the several user controls. So here you have, for example, the About dialog is a user control called About Dialog XAML, which has a code behind. So I was able to work in this XAML and the developer in this one. Also, each part of our application has this structure. So, for example, in this, the first window, we have this welcome screen. If I right-click and go to Edit Control, we jump into the user control itself, which is the welcome screen.xaml. And here I can show you the parts. So we have bitmaps, we have a tab control, buttons, everything is there working. So I can also run from inside Blend itself, just pressing F5. And it will run. The computer was sleeping just a few moments ago, so give it just a few seconds to warm up. But it's building. Build succeeded, and we should see the application. Here you go, splash screen. And we have the same application that Kyupa was just showing. I can start a new project, any name, and start adding some images here. Let's go to my computer. I think I have some stuff. No, my documents. Let's show my documents. Where is my documents? Here. Here. Documents. Oh, I have pictures. Oh, actually, I have some stuff in pictures here. Great. So photos. I have some car prototypes. So I can select them, import. And notice that this window is not quite the same one that Kirupa was using. So I will show you now on stage how we can just change this window and compile the application again, just build the application to see how easy it is to create with this kind of workflow. My dialog for importing images is called import progress dialog. So I can double click and open this. See, the same one that we just saw. So I can go here and start changing stuff, so without breaking any functionality behind. So I can go to properties and change the background for some dark gray. That's nice. And again, I have some resources behind that I have already ready. So in my window, I have this progress bar style. I can click, drag and drop on top of my progress bar, of course, and apply to style. And you see that change all the borders, all the style is not a Vista look anymore. It's specific for this application. And I can actually change very easily the color of this progress bar. If I select and go to properties, there's a foreground color that I can change this gradient here. Let's change just to a different blue. Here, just a little blue. So some of the properties are really easy. You don't even need styles or anything. The control itself exposes the properties, and you can change there. And we can also, using the drawing tools from Blend, we can draw some new stuff. In this case, let's draw a rectangle here. And we have some snapping in Blend that helps us to draw. And can also rounded corners here, 4 and 4. And let's also change the color to maybe 33, send to back. Now it starts to look much more like the first one that we saw. And actually, let's remove the stroke here. And the last one is this button that doesn't quite look the same way that we had before. What we can do here is using a research dictionary. That's a very powerful tool for designers using WPF applications. So all the styles that I have in my application is in one XAML, which is a resource dictionary. It's an external file that holds all your styles and templates. So if I open this file under resources, you can see all the icons, all the colors are all here. And one that I have in special that I want to show you is the blend style, button style blend. Is this one? Yeah, I think it's this one. So I can just drag and drop and apply to the style of my button. And you can see that it changes everything. The foreground color, background color, borders, everything else. So if I press F5 again, so you notice that we were able to completely change the look of this control, this user control, without messing with the code behind. And again, if I import some of the images, let's start new project again, and just go to Add Images, and select a few, and import. Now you see we have the new look without breaking anything. And I was pretty much, that was the workflow I had to do to change from that first version that Kirupa showed you to go to this full restyled version. And another example, we have this, let me run once again. When you select one of the images, in the compose mode, we have a donor that it's blue. So let me just show you that. Open this guy, go to compose, and if I drag some images here, when you select an image, you see that we have a blue adorner around the image. So let's say that in the process someone said, maybe this adorner looks better in red. So I don't quite agree with you, but okay, let's show you how it looks in red. It's not really hard. So that specific piece of UI, we have control here in adorners control. If I double click, we see the final result already here. So I can just select the border, go to properties, and change the color to red. Here you go. And also to all the other ones. I'll change them, the stroke to red. And just like we did with the dialog box, if I run the application again, we will see that the adorners themselves, they change already. There we go. So open the last one, go to compose, just click here, and now the adorners are red. So it's really easy to test UI ideas. Imagine doing such things like that in Win32 or C++ or other technologies. For designers, this is really great. And for developers, we don't break your code. That's great for developers too. So even small details, for example, the marquee selection tool, I was able to create a storyboard, just like I did before, to create this nice animated style. So those are the tweaks that the designers like to do, and Blend allows us very easily without breaking any code and without we depending on developers. So I think that's what I had to do. I think Rupa has something.
All right. Well, thank you, Celso. That was quite impressive and quite a nice recovery, I might add. So essentially, we're reaching the tail end of this presentation, and just wanted to give you a quick recap. We showed you a very simple example that gave you a quick overview of how a designer and a developer can work together to create a simple application. But then we moved on to a much more complex application that showed you that the workflow we showed you earlier, it scales to even more complex projects. And of course, this varies depending on various situations, complexity of your project, how knowledgeable your developers are, and also how your teams are structured. For example, with the Deep Zoom Composer, I occasionally played the role of an integrator where occasionally some minor issues, I would just play mediate between the developer and the designer to make sure that all the issues were solved. So with that, thank you very much for being here. And this is the last day of Mix, last session of MIX08. So I hope you had a great time for the past 72 hours. And many of you are not from around here, so have a safe journey back wherever you're from. And Celso and I will stick around to answer any questions you all may have.
Yeah, you have the open floor now to ask questions. You still have like 10 minutes, so use your time.
Yes?
Before you showed the first presentation, and the development seemed very linear. I was curious if you were waiting for him, and then
right.
How does that work? Do you guys collaborate at any time? If you were actually making functions for him to go in to fill in later, I was wondering what kind of collaboration there is at the beginning, how would that work, or if you're not waiting for one person?
I mean, it all depends on the application itself. Like, clearly, we do talk beforehand, like what the application is going to be, what the clear breakout is going to be, like what areas he can focus on and what areas I can focus on. And for this application, because for our demo purposes, to show the integration between Visual Studio and Blend, we actually broke it up very discrete pieces. But for the most part, he'd be working on the UI, I'd be working in parallel on the code, and we'd have like consistent naming conventions, like I showed you earlier, and we wouldn't actually have that long periods of downtime where I'm just sitting there and he's not.
Yeah, there's another piece also. For example, another thing that you can do is that each control, each user control that you have in your application, in this case, for the second case, in the Deep Zoom Composer, the developers define the names of everything. When I got there, I got the first version that you saw. All Windows style, no care about the UI at all. So I was able just to change the look of the controls without changing the name and the handles that the controls already had. So in this case, it was more a direction from developers to designer. But in some cases, I also create, for example, the splash screen, some of the dialogues, and I also define some names. So in this case, I start work with the XAML and hand it to developers, and they work with the names that I had defined. But basically, what worked was that I was able to work in XAML, and then they was working in C#.
So I think you were here first.
I was wondering, how do you guys suggest handling source control sort of strategy with, how's a designer even getting to all this, in terms of TFS, et cetera?
Currently, we're working, that's a feedback we hear all the time, and we can't say anything more definite than that, but that's, we hear you, and it would be great, but we'll have to see. Okay, there's a question over here. Seems like a lot of questions.
Yeah, we have.
Yes.
Yeah, we have Christian Sharma. He is our director of program management. He might have some more information about that.
So I just wanted to say one more comment about the source code control. So We are working on source code control support for Blend, so we will have that. But in the meantime, you can always on the same machine use whatever source code control client you already have. So basically, in the example here, the external developer that we had for this a Deep Zoom Composer application, for example, was using Subversion as the source code control system. So basically, you can just use the normal Subversion client that you have on Windows to check out the files, and once they are checked out, you can use them with Expression Blend. In fact, that's also what we're doing internally in our team, in the Blend team. So you can use whatever client is available, be it a command line or a GUI client that is available for the source code control system that you use, check out the files and check in the files. But we're also working to directly integrate source code control user interface into Blend, so we'll have that available in a future version. Oh, yes, sorry. For Team Foundation Server, the client specifically is, of course, the Team Foundation Explorer. So that is part of, yes.
Right. Great. Thank you.
Were you able to hear that?
Okay, great. Feel free to email us if you have any further questions. So thank you.